I just want to do a few things tonight. I want to explain to you what the type of school we are proposing to set up would look like, and then explain 5 things that need to happen next if this is going to actually take off. So, as David said, I'm the headmaster of the Fulham Boys' School in London. It's a boys' school, and it's very oversubscribed. I mean, we take 120 boys every year, but really we get nearly 700 applicants for those 120 places. It's built on 3 pillars: boys, the Christian faith, and enterprise. They are the 3 pillars. And about maybe 2.5 years ago, the government came to us and said, "We like what you're doing. Will you set up more schools like this in England?" And so we thought about it, and we said, then we will do that, but you need to know that every school we set up will be distinctively Christian. Every school we set up will have this huge emphasis on enterprise. And every school we set up will recognize fundamentally that boys and girls are different. Equal, but different. And they said, "Alan, I don't care what you do as long as they're good." Okay? So that was that's why we're here today. There's no free schools in Wales. I'm sure you know that. But I'm a Welshman. Not just a Welshman, a Valleys boy, okay? And so the best type of Welshman, really, I think. And so, obviously, my heart is in Wales. And so I want to do what we're doing in England in Wales. And we are now become what's called a multi-academy trust. So we're not just Fulham Boys School anymore. We're trying to set up other schools across the country. And our vision is, over the next 20, 25 years, to have a school like Fulham Boys School in every city in England and the UK. That's our plan. Not every school will be a boys' school. But every school will recognize that boys and girls are different. And so I tell you a little bit, I won't talk much about the boys pillar, but I think the first thing I need to say is this: we have to be committed to excellence. Lots of people try and set up schools built on the Christian faith or other faiths, and they do it just to peddle their religious ideology. So I'm sure you've read the news over the last 4 or 5 years, and you will see lots of religious schools failing, closing, and I think the reason they failed and closed is because they just weren't very good schools. And so first and foremost, if we're serious about this, our schools have to be committed to excellence. And so we are committed to the highest standards of education, behavior, uniform and appearance, attendance, and I'm sure you won't mind me saying this, punctuality as well, okay? There's nothing worse than being late, is there? It's terrible. But we are committed to those things. And so we think school's about giving young people a ticket to the next stage in life, to go to university, apprenticeships, the world of work. And so our job as educationalists is to provide those pupils with that ticket. So we're committed to education excellence. We're not just building a Christian school just to get our kind of ideology in. We are committed to being really, really good education. If you're going to be taken seriously, that's why the government came to us. We have to be serious about education. We believe in discipline. I'm sure if you don't do this now, but if you Google my name, you would see that 2 years ago we were in the press because we're very strict on appearance and uniform and hair. And all those, we think those things are important. We think young people need strict discipline and firm boundaries. We are committed to that. And every school we set up will have that same commitment. We think that the curriculum is important. We also think the co-curriculum is important. So none of our schools will be exam factories. Whilst I think that exams and GCSEs and A-levels are important, they're not the be-all and end-all. And so we think it's important that young people, boys and girls, have opportunities to do lots of other things as well. So our school is open from 8:30 in the morning till 5 o'clock every day, apart from Fridays. And in the afternoon, from maybe 3:30 till 5, our young men, they engage in clubs and societies to find something they really enjoy and will take through the rest of their lives. We think sport and being healthy is important, and we'd want to see that reflected in our schools. So my main point really is, we think boys and girls are different, they learn differently, they are different, and we've got this commitment to excellence to provide the best education for boys and girls. Enterprise is really that you make things happen. Nothing in life just comes to you. If you look at all the successful people in the world, it didn't just happen. They had to make it happen. And so all our schools will have this drive, this determination, this commitment to young people with a can-do attitude. So they're problem solvers. They work as part of a team. They think, they question, they challenge. We think those things are really, really important. They're socially enterprising. So obviously, you can imagine we are moving to our permanent site now in the next 6 months. And if you were in a neighborhood and you discovered that there was a boys' school coming to your street, 800 boys will be in your street every single day. I'm sure that most of you, especially if you're North Cardiff, all right, you'd be like, I don't want that. But we want our boys' school to be at the very heart of the community. So that actually they don't think, oh, that pesky boys' school. They actually think, oh, great, Fulham boys have arrived. So we put huge emphasis on social enterprise. So our young men, they go into nursing homes. They have cups of tea with old people on estates. They do their shopping for them. We've been to the Calais jungle because we want our young men to be those young men who are socially enterprising. They help society. And the third thing, and I think this is the most important thing for me really, is all our schools will be built on the Christian faith. Now, what do I mean by that? I don't know who I'm talking to tonight. Maybe you've just come along because you're interested. Maybe you've come along because you want to ask me difficult questions. I don't know who you are. But I want to be absolutely clear tonight. Every school we set up will be built upon the Christian faith. And that isn't that all our schools will have people who are nice to each other, or kind, or stand up for justice, or don't believe in bullying, because I think every school's doing that. But what we are distinctive is we say to our young men and young ladies, this is what the Bible says. This is what Jesus Christ claimed. And we wanted to think about it, question it, challenge it, disagree with it. So in our school, we've got lots of Muslim boys. Maybe as much as 30% of our boys are Muslim. We've got boys of no faith. We've got boys of other faiths. But they will all be exposed to what the Bible says, what Christianity's about. And then we discuss and debate and challenge and disagree. I think those things are important. I think education, Winston Churchill, apparently the greatest Briton of all time, he said education is about making people think and question and putting very different views on the table and people working out what they think is right. That's what we're trying to do. Okay? So we're not brainwashing. We're not saying you must think this, boys. But in every subject in our school, whether that is science, religious education, sex education, all these things, the Christian view is made very clear to our boys. And then we say to them, boys, what do you think? And they might fundamentally disagree. But we think those things are very, very important, that at least they are exposed to what the Bible says. And I think education is about choice. That's why we're trying to do it in Cardiff. My understanding is the 2 church schools in Cardiff are very, very oversubscribed. I was deputy head in one of them. I understand lots of people are homeschooling. And so what we're trying to do here is provide a school that people can choose to come to, which is different, distinctive, it's got a strong ethos, and where your children will be exposed to these things and then encouraged to think, question, and challenge. I don't want to live in a tolerant society. You might find that surprising. I don't. I think a tolerant society is quite a bland, vanilla society. If I went home tonight, I'd hopefully be home late tonight or maybe tomorrow morning, and I said to my wife, Liz, I really tolerate you. She's not best pleased with that, all right? She wants me to love her. And to get toleration, we have to dumb everything down. And suddenly, no one believes anything or thinks anything, and it's all a bit insipid. I would rather live in a society, a truly liberal society, where you can have strong beliefs, you can really disagree, but at the end of the day, you shake hands, have a cup of tea, and you're friends. And that's what we're trying to do in the Fulham Boys' School, and that's what we're trying to roll out across England, Wales, and who knows, even Scotland, I don't know, okay? I think one of the big strengths of the Fulham Boys' School, and this is where I want to come to when I talk my 5 points really, is that it's truly comprehensive. So it's a school of choice. So 25% of our boys come from private school backgrounds. They're some of the wealthiest boys in the city. One of our mums is worth £10 billion. I can't get my head around that. £10 billion. She chooses to send her boy to our school. We're very proud of that. 40% live in social deprivation. Some of our boys have been tapped up for gangs. Myself, my deputy head, had big conversations with the police at the beginning of the year about gang kind of culture in London, in our neighbourhood, over the summer. If you came to school tomorrow, I hope you would know which is which. Because they all look immaculate. They've all got access to the same opportunities. They're all meeting the same high standards. And that's what I want to try and create in this city and every other city. That's the vision, that's the ethos, if you like. I think 5 things need to happen now if we're going to make this work in Cardiff. Number 1, we need to know if you and your friends and your neighbours want it. And we need to know the age of the children that you want it. So we can start to plan really kind of specifically how we would set this up in practice over the next year or so. That's the first thing. So you have to sort of, if you think, I'd love that type of school, then let the local group know. Let us know the age of your child, and also encourage your friends and family and neighbours to say, yeah, look at this school, you might want to sign up to it. That's the first thing. The second thing we need to do then is find a building. And we've got a few ideas of where that might be. That's the second thing that's happened. The third thing is this, finance. Like I say, in England, you've got the free school movement, where we are an independent government-funded school. The government give us a lot of funds. That doesn't happen in Wales. So if we were going to make this work, it would be an independent school, which we would need to fund. And I imagine that would be a big barrier for lots of you to say, I can't pay for education. What our plan is, we've got people, Americans, who are happy to give us lots, always Americans, isn't it? Give us lots and lots of money to make this work. And our plan is that if you really wanted to come to this school and you couldn't afford it, then we would be able to give you some kind of bursary or get you in for free. But like in Fulham Boys School, those who have got the means help those who haven't got the means. And so if you are worth £10 billion, which is ridiculous, all right, you can help those who haven't got a penny to scratch themselves with. So we say to our parents, listen, you've saved a lot of money by coming to our school, so can you give us some money so we can help those who haven't got it? That would be our model, that would be our kind of principle. But equally, we'd bring funding in from other people. So do you want the school, number 1? We get a building, number 2. Number 3, the funding issue. Number 4, I think, is really to get teachers to come to our school. Because I'm a Christian, but if I had a choice between a really outstanding teacher who wasn't a Christian and a half-decent Christian teacher, I'd always go for the outstanding person. That's my job. And so I would encourage you, if you're a teacher here tonight, to think about these type of schools and to encourage other people to come into education to make a big difference. Nelson Mandela said, didn't he, education is the most powerful weapon to change the world. I don't know if I agree with that completely, but I see his point. And the 5th thing is, if you're a Christian, pray about these things, isn't it? Because if it's meant to happen, under God, who knows what may happen.
Yeah, where would the school be located in Cardiff? And also, would it be accessible to rail and road networks?
So I guess the answer to that question is we haven't found the exact location yet. I think the kind of local group, if you like, the steering group, have been kind of exploring options about where we would be, but we would want to make it that it would serve Cardiff and South East Wales. I think that's quite important to say that. But ideally, it would be placed in West people, which would be accessible to everyone. I mean, I went to a Welsh school. We came from all over, and you bus people in and you work that out. But I think that it has to be a location which is desirable and also that it's got easy access. Where that is at the moment, I don't know. Again, it depends on who the people are coming, the demographic, where they're based, and trying to work around that.
My name's Zaid. I'm the head teacher at Cardiff Muslim Primary School. It's great to see a fantastic turnout from, say, like-minded people, basically, people of faith. We have actually got a project going on at the moment as well, looking at a high school, a Muslim high school. And a thought that goes through my mind is, could there be a joint project? One whereby, maths, English, geography, topic work is all exactly the same. You go off and do your Christian studies, we go off and do our Islamic studies, and then we come together for the other lessons, you know. So that, I don't know. Have you got something else in mind?
Like I said at the beginning, we are committed to those three pillars of boys and girls are different, enterprise, and the Christian faith. However, I sit on a kind of board called Christian Concern for Education, which deals with a lot of kind of issues about lots of kind of hot topics in the media at the moment. And I do a lot of work on those issues with other faiths. And so this school would be very happy to work with like-minded schools on those issues, but we would be distinctively Christian.
How easy would it be, either one, for a pupil to come into the school after, year 7, so maybe year 8 or year 9, or on the other hand, leave and go to another school partway if the parents felt this was not for them, or maybe someone in another school felt, my kids spent 3 years in one of the local schools, but I'd like to try Trinity. How easy would it be for parents and kids to make that change partway through their education?
So I think our ideal would be to have an all-through school, which would start from kind of infant all the way through to A-level. And so you'd have a year group in every single, across that kind of age range. How the school would be set up would depend on the demand for each year group. School was established and you had every year group, then like any school, and we've had one today, you can apply for what's called an in-year transfer, where you said, I've been in another school, let's imagine it's called, I don't know, imagine there's a school called Cardiff High, I don't know, all right? And you're in Cardiff High and you think, actually, I'd like to go to Trinity. Just imagine that, I don't know. Then we would interview that child and that parent and say, why do you want to come here? Look at their kind of, is it best suited for them? And then they could easily get in. In the same way, you can leave a school. You can't keep anyone prisoner. But it depends on whether the school they want to go to has got places to take them. But like I said, it really depends on, that's my first point really about how we're going to make this happen, is the demand for each age group, and that determines how we can set the school up. Because obviously, if you've only got 2 14-year-olds interested, that's not viable to make this work. So I think there's 200 people signed up at the moment saying they really want this school. Ideally, we'd want 1,000 people saying we really want this school, and then we can work that out from there.
Do you want to say how many did that in Fulham Boys? Year group by year group?
Yeah, so in Fulham Boys School, obviously we're just a secondary school, and we started off in our first year, which was 6 years ago, with just year 7. And that year was undersubscribed. For a year group of 120, only 79 boys came. Because it's a risk, isn't it? And I got to be honest with you, this is a risk, all right? It's a huge risk, but it's exciting. I really think that, so in our first year with 79 boys, by year 2 we were oversubscribed, so we had maybe, 170, 180 boys applying for 120 places. And like I say, by year 6, we've got nearly 700 boys applying for 120 places. So, I think that if this is going to happen, you have to take a bit of a leap and a bit of a risk. But I would definitely say that it's worthwhile. I quote this last time, I think Hudson Taylor said, in doing these sort of things, at first it seems impossible, then it's difficult, and then it's done. And I would love to think that I would come back here in 3 years' time and say, it's done. But to do that, you have to take a bit of a risk and a bit of a leap.
Just a question perhaps on lots of minds. You couldn't give, I'm sure, a precise answer, but a rough ballpark figure on fees?
So, like I said, I can't be definitive on that, but I do think that it's in line with our trust and in line with what we do that any pupil who really wanted to come to this school should not be prohibited by money. We are committed to that. And that's why, we're in a wealthy part of London. Like I say, we've got lots of wealthy parents. The plan is that they'd raise £1 million a year for us. And I think our plan for the trust would be that some of that money would be spent on other schools. to help people who really couldn't afford to come. It costs, on average, I think £5,000 or £6,000 to educate a child in an average school. That's the money we're looking at. We would hope, and I don't know this because there's lots of people who said they'll give us money for this venture, but they want to see there's a need and a demand for it. If they can see, wow, there's hundreds and hundreds of people in Cardiff on this type of school, then there's people who will give us lots of money for that, which I would hope then that people who can't afford to come would be able to come for free. I really think that. I would not want to say to anyone, I'm sorry, you can't afford to come here. I would never want to do that. But that relies on people who can afford to come to be able to pay something, and fees and sponsorship.
Hi, I'm a primary teacher. I'm just wondering what curriculum you'd be looking to use. Is it something you've tried and tested before, or would it have a Welsh bent, or even teach the Welsh language?
So, as a free school, we're not bound by the national curriculum. So the way we do it in Fulham Boys School, we do a lot of curriculum mapping at the moment. We ask the question, we work backwards, what does an 18-year-old young man need to look like? What does he need to know? What skills does he have? What experiences should he have had? What should his character be like? And then we say to every single department to work back or key stage 5 to 4 to 3 and now to 2 and now to 1 and how you can get them to that stage, or the young lady as well. We would obviously want them to meet the demands of A-level and GCSE. I don't think we'd be bound by what Wales are doing or England are doing. We could do our own thing. But I think it's got to be meaningful and relevant and worthwhile. I think that if you're a school in Wales, you should definitely include bilingualism. You should definitely do that. I think that's very, very important. But I think that the exciting thing about this, and I hope you're excited by this, is that our curriculum wouldn't be bound or trapped by anything. It would be free. And if you do that, you can't sort of say, well, we're going to take an easy option. You've got to make that curriculum better than what is being prescribed. But it's got to be fit for purpose. What do we want 18-year-old young women and men to look like? That's what our school's about. It's about giving a ticket to the next stage in life and to go into that world and to be able to survive, but also change it for the better.
Would the school be a good environment for children with additional learning needs, particularly global delay?
Absolutely. I mean, we're an academic boys' school, but our special needs department is one of the best departments in the school. If you're built on the Christian faith, then you have an obligation, I think, more than anyone, to look after the vulnerable and needy society. You really do. And so, and I don't think you can, I think there's lots of our most able boys are dyslexic. They've got severe learning needs, but you have to deal with that so they can access the curriculum. We don't do a lot of withdrawal from classes. I don't think that's right. You keep them in the mix as much as possible and support them in that curriculum. But of course, we would look after additional learning needs. That would be fundamental.
One thing just to add to that, which is, as a steering group, we've been discussing the kinds of values of the school that we would look for, and small class sizes has been a distinct value that we've been looking to honour, which I know has been something that the Fulham Boys have been able to maintain, and that would be something that we'd want to kind of run through here.
Can I just say on that point, Dave, which is, I think it's related to that question, but we would be committed to equality. And I think when you think of the Equality Act, a lot of Christians get a bit nervous about that, but equality is our bag. And I think, I'm going to be controversial now, you can come back at me if you want to, I'm sure you will. Everyone talks about equality at the moment, but no one really believes in it, not really. Because you've got top sets and bottom sets, you've got the athletic and the non-athletic, you've got the good-looking and the not-so-good-looking, you've got the tall and the short, you've got those with loads of hair and those without any hair. You can decide which is the best, all right? We all make judgments. What we want to do, and what we're trying to do in Fulham Boys School, is say, actually, none of those things matter. There's more than one way to be clever. And I think that's what, as a Christian school, we say, you are made in God's image. And we want to develop your talents in that way. So we are 100% committed to special educational needs education.
I know you've said there's 5 things that need to happen for this to happen, and you've already had a few meetings in that. Do you have a timeline of when you're hoping for it to start?
I don't see... If you can get the absolute starting point is you have to prove that there's a need and a demand for a school like this. Once you've got that, and that's the hard part, and that's the part that we can't do as the Charles Spurgeon Trust. That's got to be locally proven a demand and a need for this kind of school. And, 1,000 people sounds a lot, doesn't it? But apparently there's 73 evangelical churches in Cardiff. There's loads more churches in Cardiff. There's mosques, there's Catholic churches who all want this kind of education, I think. And if you know 5 people, tell 5 people. And those 5 people tell 5 more people. You can get 1,000 people by Christmas. You've got 1,000 people by Christmas. I can then go to the money people, and those people who said, oh, we'd love to get behind this. You could make this happen easily by September 2021. Easily. But the most important thing is proving a need and a demand.
How do you narrow down 700 applications to 120 boys? What's your admission criteria?
So our admissions criteria is 50% is open places and 50% are faith places. And I'll be totally honest with you, and I'm happy this to be recorded. If it was up to me, 100% would be open places. But we're trying to, in the early days, establish that Christian ethos from the parents as well. And how that works then is a 2-mile radius from the school. So the school is meant to be a local school for local boys. That's how we work our criteria. But I want to make this point clear. It's a school built on the Christian faith, but I don't want this to be a school just for Christians. I'm not interested in that in the slightest. This is a light on a hill, not a monastery or a convent.
Hi, you said 30% of your boys are Muslims. Obviously understand that it's a Christian-based school. So, but what do you do in terms of accommodating the faiths of those Muslims or people of other faiths who, for example, have to pray 5 times a day, and do you provide the facilities, etc.?
That's a very good question. So there's a room in the school, a kind of quiet area at lunchtimes, which boys can go to. We used to have 5 church services a year where we'd go to church, and a lot of the Muslim parents would come to me and say, we can't go to church. We're very happy to come to assembly, very happy to come and listen to the chaplain speak from the Bible, but we can't set foot inside a church. So we've changed that now, because I don't think a building's important. I don't. So we have 1 service in the year, which is in a church building, which is our Christmas carol service. And the other 4 services then are in our school hall. So we're trying to make that kind of not kind of alienating anyone. During Ramadan, all our boys have to pay for their... We have school lunches compulsory because we want them to have healthy food where they all eat together. During Ramadan, we say you haven't got to pay for the food because you're not eating it. So we do try and accommodate them like that as well. And like I say, we've got every year we've got 2 Christian Union meetings at lunchtime. One's called Digging Deeper, which is for boys who are really interested in Christianity and want to learn more. One's called Just Looking, which is basically where they debate and argue and challenge each other. And lots of Muslim boys go to that to give their viewpoint. And that's quite a hotbed of debate, really.
How many of the schools have you got in the trust at the moment?
So we've got the Fulham Boys School. We've just taken a school on in, I won't say the name, but it's been recorded, Dave, isn't it? We've taken on a school which is struggling at the moment, which we are kind of taking on. And then we've got bids in for 3 other schools that we hope to set up in the next few years.
So you're like actively looking for established schools already that are part of the state system, looking to bring them into part of the Multi-Academy Trust? Or are you just looking to establish brand new sites?
So our ideal is to establish new schools. So like I say, the 3 schools that we are working with now would be brand new schools. But if there are schools so we don't actively go out looking for current schools to come into our trust. But when they approach us and say, will you help us? Then we do that. But we say to them, providing you go along with those 3 pillars.
Hi, what exams was 3 questions. First one, what exams do you hold at your school? The second question would be, is it a co-ed? Will it be a co-ed school? The third question would be, if a staff member sends their child to that school, is there a discount for fees or are they free? Thank you.
So the first question is, we do GCSE and A-levels, and we do a select amount of BTECs. They are the kind of subjects we do. The second question was... Co-ed. It will be co-ed, definitely, but we are committed to boys and girls are different. And the third question would be about staff. Like I say, we would hope that anyone who was unable to attend because of finance would be able to attend. And obviously, like in our school, well, we don't have fees, but you would, if someone works in your school for more than 2 years, you would try and incentivize that in some way.
We just moved here from America, and there's a few Christian schools where we're from where they have a hybrid option for home ed families where they can maybe go to school for 3 days or in the afternoon, and it just accommodates to home educating families who want some school experience but not the whole thing. Is that something this school would offer or accommodate to in the future, or is that not something you're interested in?
It's not something I've thought about, if I'm totally honest with you. I think that we would, as a Christian, I think that the education, the people who are most responsible for education are parents. I think the Bible teaches that. They are the people who are really responsible for educating their children. I understand lots of Christians today won't send their children to state schools because they're worried about what they might learn. I hope that people who are currently homeschooling their children would really trust us to educate their children, and rather than we have days in our school and 2 days at home, actually come into our school to help us. So we have, I think parents involved in education is, you can debate about lots of things. You can debate about single sex versus co-ed. You can debate about setting versus mixed ability. You can debate all day, and everyone's got different opinions. One thing I think everyone agrees on is the more that parents are involved in their child's education, the better the outcomes. And so we would be very keen, like in Fulham Boys School, where we have parents into the school rather than saying, actually stay at home for 2 days and come just for 3 days. We'd rather get those parents in for those 2 days, I think.
Hi. You've made a distinction between boys and girls learning differently, but you've not clarified in my mind what that distinction is and how you actually meet those needs that you are pointing out.
Yeah, well, I mean, that would take me a long time to do that. But I'll just say in a nutshell. I mean, if you've ever taught a boy or a girl, if you've been a parent of a boy or a girl, if you've ever met a boy or a girl, you will know they're different. I really think that. I don't mean that joke. You will know they're different. And you can look at exclusion statistics. A lot more boys get excluded than girls. You look at kind of progress and attainment. Girls outperform boys. I think that you have to address that. So we were on Radio 4, I'm sure you all tuned into it a few weeks ago, where we were talking about the gender gap and what we do about the gender gap. I think the 2 things I think are really different about boys and girls. I think boys' literacy skills are not very good compared to girls, and I think that their aspirations are not what they should be. So, and I'm making massive generalizations now, but girls will tend to do things to please. Boys have to see the relevance, okay? So you say to, and I've taught boys and girls, it's the first boys school I've ever taught in, you say to girls, can you do your homework? They'll just do it like a ask them to do their homework. Whereas a boy thinks, what's the point of this? And like I say, girls would do things to please, boys would rather please their mates than please you. So we do a lot of work on aspirations. We have an aspirations day for year 9s, for example, where we get maybe 80 or 90 people to come in from different walks of life, different professions, and boys can have 3 minutes to talk to them about their job and think, oh yeah, I want to be a pilot. Well, boys, you need to do this in class then. Boys would rather get their hands stuck into things. So if you talk about tadpoles and frogs, show them tadpoles and frogs. We use London as our classroom. They're out and about. They're competitive. You know, girls tend to not want to upset their friend, but as a boy loves to beat their best mate or something. So it's though I can't go into all of it, but I'm just giving you a flavour of it really. But So you can do it in different ways, okay? So you can do it in terms of you can have a co-ed school where you have some classes where you'd have boys and girls separately. You can use it somewhere so you know how boys learn, you know how girls learn, so you try and merge them together so they bring out the best of each other, because girls need to be more competitive, boys need to be a bit more collaborative. But you've got to understand that there's differences to get the best out of them. And sometimes that is doing things away from each other. Sometimes it's bringing it together. And that's where the expertise of the teacher comes into play. But you have to have that philosophy and that mindset that there are differences rather than say, we're just going to keep doing the same thing to all of them and expect the results.
Let me give you my question.
So are you then saying then that you may actively, within a day, a week or a month, actually have separate boys and girls experiences within the same year or same class, co-ed class?
Again, you would have to work that out in terms of what you had in front of you.
Right.
And you'd have to, so when I was in Treorchy Common Head School, I was assistant head there for nearly 5 years, and we had single-sex, my point GCSE classes for a while, to see if that worked. But again, my point is, you've got to have this in your mind, boys and girls are differently.
So I don't know a great deal about your background or the school itself. I'm just learning and being influenced as we go along. Do you have an example of that currently within your school range or not?
Well, we've only got a boys' school at the moment.
Right, okay.
So the school we've taken over in Westminster is co-ed.
Okay.
And what we are trying to do there is because science, maths, engineering tend to be boy-heavy subjects. So we're doing a lot of work there with the girls to say, come on, you can do this as well. So that's what we're doing at the moment. But in terms of our immediate setting, it's a boys' school, so everything we do is geared towards boys.
I was brought up in the Church of Wales sort of medium in the high schools in Wales, and there was obviously quite an influence there from the Church of Wales facilitating some of the church services or the doctrine, the theology that was taught. Will you be looking to local churches in Cardiff to help facilitate and develop and help nurture children in their faith as they grow up as well? Or how is that going to look?
So like in Fuller Boys School at the moment, really, we have assemblies, boys go to assemblies 3 times a week. Most of those are led by our chaplain, but we do bring in other ministers to lead our assemblies. And then those churches can say to us, we've got a youth group on a Friday night, and we encourage our boys to attend those youth groups.
I know you're talking about excellence and everything. What about creativity, where perhaps we just want to encourage children to be creative, where sometimes being competitive or being measured can be really inhibiting? How much sort of creative freedom do you bring into education at the school?
Okay, so let me give an example about that. So I think 3 of the most important subjects on the curriculum are sport, drama, and music. I really think that if you want a really, really good school, those departments have to thrive. And I personally line manage those departments this year as the head. How you measure the success of those departments, though, is very different to how you'd measure English, maths, science, and history. Because in those subjects, I went to the Phantom of the Opera with my wife and son over half-term because I'm quite cultured. I didn't sit in the audience thinking, I bet that singer's a level 8 in music. Or if I watched Tottenham Hotspur play football, I don't think, I bet Christian Eriksen, I bet he would have been a level 7 at football. You just want him to excite you, enthuse you. And so the way we measure those departments are very, very different. So number 1, we say to sport, we want every boy that you teach to love and enjoy and be healthy and active. Even if they're terrible, I want to find one sport they'd enjoy for the rest of their lives. In music, we sing almost every day because I'm Welsh and I just love it. But just go for it. Doesn't matter if you've got a talent, just go for it. Act, throw some moves, just have a go. And then you try and work out, don't you? So you try and get, so for sports example today, every boy is healthy and active. then you've got those boys then who are really excellent and you tap into their talent and move them on. And then you've got those boys who might want to be academic in that area and push them on that way. So I think we try and, I think that's the beauty of having a free school a policy or an independent school where you can do things differently, and those creative subjects, you don't stifle them by measuring them every 6 weeks. You let them go.
Thanks, Alan. I guess having been part of the little core group that's been discussing some of the values and vision of what we might come across, I know, Alan, you've been clear on saying the kind of the bare minimum of the Charles Spurgeon Trust is those 3 values that you've said in terms of enterprise. Boys and girls are different and built on a Christian foundation. But once they're in place, in a sense, it's down to who the people in the local school, the kind of emphases, priorities, energies, creativities that the local group express a desire for. So it may be that one school has more of a kind of sciencey flavour, one might be more of a creative one. That's okay. You're not kind of going to legislate too hard as long as those 3 values and priorities are in place. So
yeah, I mean, the purpose of the trust is not to be like Costa Coffee, nothing wrong with Costa Coffee, but it's not to have the same school in every single city. You've got to have those 3 things running through all of them, but what that looks like, so we do rowing. I can't imagine you could do rowing in Cardiff. Maybe I'm wrong, I don't know. But that's a big thing in Fulham. It might not be in Cardiff, I don't know.